Hello and welcome to this webcast, Enhancing Your People Skills in a Hybrid Workplace, Harnessing the Power of Your Staff to Drive Success and Change. My name is Alyssa Champion, Marketing Manager here at Project Plan Services, PPS, and I am joined by my wonderful colleague, Robert Kenny. Hi, Rob.
Hi.
So this webcast is going to cover off a number of topics, all centered around core skills, their role in your organization, their importance and why they make a difference to driving success and change. Before we jump in, a little brief introduction and overview about PPS. And so at our core, PPS are a dynamic corporate portfolio program and project management specialists, working with clients across the world to solve their unique needs with efficient and tailored solutions. So we were established in 2008, going on to partner with Microsoft in 2009 and later with Smartsheet before becoming Smartsheet's very first UK Platinum partner. We have a range of expertise in the project management space across a huge range of industries. And that is where I hand over to Rob, who not only is our expert in solutions in project management and training these solutions within these organizations we work with, but also has a vast knowledge and experience working solely in the learning and development space too, which kind of brings us to the purpose of this webcast, people skills, more specifically core skills. So Rob, what even are core skills?
Well, to me, core skills are the glue that holds something together, or the oil in a machine. So many people remember like that generic term of soft skills, which I'm sort of squinting a little bit about. Mm-hmm. So these skills are so important that there's definitely nothing soft or fluffy about them. They enable you to do a good job if you've got those skills enhanced. So these are fundamentals to a success of any project. So for example, there are communication skills used to clearly explain to a working group what you require them to complete, and leadership skills to engage with a team to allow them to feel empowered to question or amend any processes. Mm-hmm. So in all, the core areas of core skills are what you've demonstrated on this slide here. So you have communication, customer service, time management, leadership, presentation, and performance management. Now, at the end of the day, they do cross over. So some leadership skills will cross over into communication, but you get the gist that they fall into these areas or these subject headings, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great. So you mentioned kind of a little bit of a taboo word talking about soft skills there. So I suppose we're going to cover that off now. You know, if these core skills are just that core and they are the glue that holds an organization together with regards to its people, then why aren't we seeing this as commonplace? You know, why are we here today? So why aren't they recognized as being so important?
I think that at the end of the day, controversy surrounding their importance is the fact that skills like this float in and out of popularity, and I've done in absolutely years. So the challenge of people referring to them as soft skills and fluffy skills, it means the importance of them is not even considered. They just think, oh, well, it's a nice to have. So this could provide some challenges in any workplace. So many businesses fall into the trap of assuming that people they hire come with these skills already in their job. So if you hire, for example, me as a training manager, that I would be a confident and inclined to be a confident presenter. But sometimes skills take time to learn and perfect. So yes, while I'm a confident presenter, there are certain bits of that I can hone in and develop as my career grows, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
So at the end of the day, you might have an excellent project manager that has project management skills. However, that person might not necessarily have great time management skills, or certain things distract them, which then hinders their performance. Mm-hmm. So basically behind this is that people and businesses fall into the trap of thinking that people and potentially software can solve their problems. So this is why skills are put on the back burner and forget those necessary skills to help them move through a project or a change initiative and helps them, as I mentioned before, oil that machine to make it work effectively.
I think you've got a little bit of a case study exactly on that to kind of talk us through, right?
Yes, I've worked with many businesses that have spent lots of money on fantastic new systems, but have missed those key core skilled areas. So at the end of the day, I've worked in L&D and with lots of organisations for like over 20 years now. So the example that I've got is a new system was bought by an education company, and this was to make booking for students easier for them. However, some of these core skills were missed. So for example, the engagement of the key stakeholders that were using this system didn't happen. There was no communication. There was no enablement of their adaptation to change, and that wasn't managed effectively. So therefore there was resistance with this system straight away from the outset. And when it came to rolling out that process, the methods of using said system, no one was consulted as to what they do now and how it will make things better. There was no collaboration, no consultation, and no negotiation, because obviously people will be resistant to this. So the system cost a lot of money. I'm not going to say how much that money was. And not just that, but the full project team that was spent on implementing this system. So it was over a 2-year period as well. So the cost of this was massive. In the end, the system was shelved, and it was shelved due to the fact of lack of uptake. The project team is now no more because of that lack of uptake, and the 2 years of that project just went wrong from the onset. So a waste of time, money, and effort. So that's generally what happened.
Wow.
So to look at the reason of why investing in development of core skills for helping projects move forward, you need to have the right staff with the right motivation and a method of tracking that work with the buy-in from all stakeholders, which equals the fact of no time wasted, no money wasted. I mean, come on, it's a no-brainer, right?
Absolutely. It's the perfect example, isn't it, really, and the clear story as to why they're so important. Not even just from a personal development perspective for somebody to do their role, but within an organization and its attitude to growth, development, change, and just future-proofing itself as well. It goes way beyond just being an individual doing their job. So with that in mind then, as specialists in project planning and management, as I previously mentioned, should we take a look at how we can combine those two things and apply them directly, apply core skills directly to project-based environments? So Rob, talk me through this.
Okay, so this is generally, so most project managers will understand that this is a project cycle. Okay, so you have your 1 through to 5 steps of how you would initiate or start to put a plan in place and to roll it all out. So the first stage of this, from your initiation point of view, is communication skills are so important here. This is presenting to the likes of management or board members the need for change and the need and the benefits behind why this should happen. Okay, so why this project should happen. And those presentation skills are very important. So then it moves on to your requirements. So again, this is really, really important. So from a requirements point of view, you are communicating to stakeholders about what their needs are and then balancing that with the needs of the business. So you're looking at your communication skills, leadership skills as well, because people might not necessarily understand why you are wanting this information, and then being able to present these requirements back to the relevant stakeholders that you are trying to get buy-in for. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good. So then it's moving on to the planning, which, to be honest, a lot of people jump for these 2 phases and move straight into planning. So this is where time management, absolutely, the minimization of distractions and looking at the barriers that are around to stop you completing your projects. The leadership, so tracking those tasks, asking people why they've not done those particular tasks, and that's coupled with your performance management skills. it's required for you to be able, when you've set out your planning, to be able to look at each objective that you have brought together and looking at the baselines for that project and how you are building and enhancing and empowering the right team to be able to do their roles successfully. Yeah. So the next part of it is obviously execution. So again, leadership and performance management. So you've initiated, let's say, for example, a new process. So this is about managing that team throughout and making sure the external stakeholders and the people that are effective fully buy into this. Okay, and you're explaining it clearly. You're providing a nurturing environment for them. You are discussing the pros and cons, all of these great leadership and thought management processes to be able to help your team through that project. Yeah. And then you've got obviously the closure. So this would be a presentation and using your communication skills, because there may be questions, there may be barriers still at this point. So to explain what the new changes are, to explain that the project has been implemented and this is the success and this is what's happened, explain accountability of how it's gone and how it's worked and how it will be continued to be adopted. And also as well, a bit of a post-mortem as to if we did something like this again, how are we going to improve? Because that's a very key, important part of it.
Absolutely. So it's just a really clear reminder how important that final stage is, less so from, it's fairly obvious from the end of a project and conclusion of that, but then how that's going to be rolled out into an organization, right? You talk about it, how it's going to be continue to be adopted, and the impact that has. If we think about that versus the case study you previously mentioned, the project team probably ran a really swift, really amazing project to get that delivered, but it was at that point of closure and how that was then rolled out to the rest of the organization that may have presented some challenges. So we know that change can be hard in most businesses, whether that is the adoption rate or the understanding as to why the change is happening for the greater good of the company anyway, right? So with any new process, platform or program, including training is that the core skills and that adoption is so important, but also how to manage change.
Yeah, absolutely. So change is a challenge for many businesses, and there are factors to consider to enable a really smooth transition to people accepting the change. I think what people need to understand about change management is that it's about managing emotion. Okay, that's what change management is all about. So to be able to do this, many core skills are used to show, let's say that we're moving forward to focus on from an on-site operation to a virtual environment. So again, you're looking at your communication skills to be able to communicate the need and the benefits of why you're proposing that move. And this would then allow for a two-way communication. It would allow for questions, and then you can either help break down any of the barriers to this change. So in other words, if there's any denial or anger about this, and you are also then aware at the start of that particular project, if there's any crucial emotion that's driving people's behavior and their adaptation to that particular change. So again, it's a fine line between managing the change and managing with the energy that you're spending on that time, on that project management. If there is little time spent on enacting that change and there's insufficient skills used, so your leadership, your communication, your presentation, etc., then this is where your change program will break down. Okay. So there'll be many barriers, as you can see on the Kubler-Ross change curve here. A lot of these things, so denial, anger, bargaining, depression, all of those parts, people will be giving you barriers and resistance to that change. So that loss of control, that shock to the new. Individuals, as part of a project, will try and resist. It's a natural thing. So using techniques for understanding of how you present that information will help combat that, as it were. And then you'll be able to manage that transition and transformation for effective leadership and building that trust.
So would you see that this, albeit is a curve and it's kind of, if change isn't managed, you're going to embark on this kind of journey from shock and managing all of the different emotions and setbacks potentially that those emotions will contribute to a project or a delivery, for example. But could you also see it as a bit of a cycle? So if you're presenting a new idea or something that's going to be rolled out in an organization and you are met with shock and anger, is there a way at that point that you can break that cycle? Is that where that leadership, where that communication all comes in?
Yes, in essence, absolutely. But what we're trying to do here is you shouldn't really break this curve. This curve will happen at the end of the day. And what we're trying to do is get through the shock, denial, anger stages more quickly. So they're still going to happen. And they are still going to happen because that's how this works, because you've got a range of emotions that you're going through, and your core skills will help you move more quickly, and teams and resistant people move more quickly through that curve and get to the acceptance stage. So I've been through this curve myself, and at the end of the day, sometimes I'll go through shock, denial and anger all at the same time.
Okay, no, that makes complete sense. It's almost like you have to let it run its course.
You do.
It's about how you manage that process in order to manage the change.
Yeah.
Amazing. I think a key thing to remember, putting all of this together, looking at everything we've covered, is to remember that the training that we're talking about here is very much separate from the how to use a piece of software, for example. So how to use your project management system. Like you said before, you might onboard a project manager. They're amazing with the platform that you already are using. However, it's those additional skills that that person will then use to approach, adapt and utilize their resources to adapt, approach and utilize a certain situation with maybe their team, with their staff. And so that is where this comes in. And especially for change, as we've just covered, I think a key thing is having the core skills means that you can recognize that is a constant evolution. As we say, this isn't a cycle to break, it is a journey that you have to move through, and how, for example, your audience as an organization might change, and therefore it's the core skills that will change a person's use of a system or the way they approach a piece of work to then present that to a changing audience, and how that evolves, and in order to continue to drive success within the organization, right?
Completely, because at the end of the day, you've got people tend to forget there is a personable point to dealing with projects or a change initiative or whatever it is. You're dealing with people at the end of the day. A system is not going to be the be all and end all of solving your problem. It'll help, don't get me wrong, but you've got to have these core skills in place to be able to help you deal and develop your people along with the program that you're trying to initiate.
Amazing. So we've kind of come full circle, really, haven't we? Because we're back to that kind of case study, back to that example about what are core skills. So I suppose just a little roundup, really, as to what we've covered. So Rob, I suppose, looking back at what we've spoken about, top line on each of these points, what do you think?
Okay, so what core skills are, is they are crucial to whatever change project that you are enabling with an organization. So remember that those top categories: leadership, performance management, communication, time management, presentation skills, and obviously customer service. And I think I've sort of covered why they're so important as well, because at the end of the day, so I've done two for the price of one there, which is great. The fact that they are a worthy investment, because if you are just reliant on a system and you haven't engaged with those people, think about back to the case study that I talked about, you can suddenly write off all that money that you spent on the system and the project team if you don't enable those people. And then obviously we talked about the project cycle, and how you would apply all of those skills to the project cycle using those 5 key areas. And then we've also talked about the fact of managing change stroke emotion, because that's what you're doing. You will go through a series of emotions, or people will go through a series of emotions, and those need to be addressed and listened to, and managed to a certain extent to help them through that change, because it's inevitable they're going to go through them.
Definitely. So to throw you in the deep end, if you know, for those who are listening, what are the kind of key actions, do you think, if they're starting off completely from scratch, they're joining us, they have no idea where to start, what's your kind of top suggestion, recommendation?
I think, to be honest, that what you would tend to do is have a look at what it is that you're trying to achieve, what is it that you're trying to change, and then you would look at going back to the project cycle. Okay, what skills do I need to be able to present this project? Have I got those skills? So a lot of people tend to use like a skills matrix or whatever's to be able to pull this forward. But at the end of the day, it's about, don't think about it about tasks alone. This is the one main takeaway that you should have from this. How am I going to be able to see this through fruition? If you are trying to explain, so here's an analogy for you. You're trying to explain the purpose of why you want to go to the park today with your 4-year-old child. Okay, what skills are you using to convince your 4-year-old child to go to the park? And those skills are exactly what you need for enabling a project. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. I suppose it's the perfect segue to discuss our role, predominantly your role, Rob, at PPS, and kind of how we can support those listening. And, you know, we know that this is a daunting journey, and our role has always been at PPS to go far beyond a usual platform supplier or training provider. And we recognise that this is about how we can help them along this path of change, implementation and adoption. So, yeah, I mean, as our in-house expert, you speak about those recommendations for people to do the first steps. So how can we help them with that?
I think that what it would be is, like, you know, we would help at the end of the day. So what I try to do is try to create and we create a positive sort of environment and build trust, etc., with you to be able to help you move forward. So unlike most training providers, we would have a look at your challenge. Now, it could be that you have a project that you're thinking, right, I want to be able to initiate this. We will have a look at that and think, right, what are the steps that you need to take to going through the project cycle, and where are you in experience of being able to meet those desired skills to help success for your project? So we would understand your key responsibilities and core competencies that you've got for each job, and we would match those complementary skills in a skills matrix to show you this is potentially what you need. And we will be able to then work with you and to, you know, deliver some training for you, do some coaching, some mentoring. And I think that the difference for us is that, yes, you can search coaching skills. Yes, you can go out and do that and go to a coaching skills course. But what we want to do is mentor you through that full cycle. So it's not just about come to a session and then that's it. It's about coming to us with challenges, even when you've delivered. Let's go with communication skills, and you've delivered your plan to the board and you've had some questions and some barriers that have been thrown out to you. You would have those questions and bring them to us and say, these are the questions that I've been asked and wasn't too sure how to deal with them. And we will help you in dealing with those questions. to move forward. So it's about enforcing a mentoring approach from us, having a continuous relationship, making sure that not one size fits all. At the end of the day, we work very closely with you first, look at your competency levels and what we can do, and we will always tailor and personalize a program fit for you and your company.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Sounds perfect. Possibly one. I think a big thing is as well that, you know, this goes across the board with everything that we do. I think we're very proud of the approach that we take, aren't we, in terms of our working with our clients and really listening and understanding what it is that they want. And it's about putting the learnings into practice straight away, rather than giving someone a case study or an example that they might not necessarily recognize in their own day-to-day. But it's about doing the complete opposite, giving them something where we're talking to them about an issue that they're facing right this minute, that they can go away from this training, go back to their desk and put it into practice straight away and make things happen.
It's not going to be one of them. I'm going to say something quite controversial now. It's not about sitting either in a room or virtually and me throwing at you, right, let's do a role play. It's not about that. It's not about that at the end of the day. It's about giving you the fundamentals, the tools and techniques to be able to communicate, and then to put that into practice. And then, you know, there'll be lots of toing and froing between us, even if I actually could be a part of and observe you communicating to, I don't know, a set of stakeholders or whatever's, and to give you proper structured feedback on what you've done in a real life environment. That's what we'll look at, definitely.
Amazing. Well, I suppose finally then on that, you know, if anybody does have any questions about the content that we've covered off today, or just want to know a little bit more about the sessions that we offer, the solutions that we offer and deliver, then please get in touch. Information is on screen. Otherwise, thank you so much, Rob, for joining me today and sharing many words of wisdom. And yeah, to those listening, we can't wait to work with you soon, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.